The next part in line for this carriage stop project is the spindle. It's a pretty simple turn part. It's has a diameter of 0.4375 plus nothing minus 1. That's to fit inside the reamed hole in the body. We reamed that 7/16 plus 1,000th minus nothing, so we'll have a little bit of clearance in there for the spindle to fit in the hole, because it has to slide back and forth, obviously. It has a 7/16 20 thread on it, and that's significant. I chose that thread for a reason. If you figure out the pitch of a 20 pitch thread, you'll find out that it's 50 thousandths. So one turn of the thimble will move the spindle 50 thousandths. So the way it worked out, I could put 50 divisions on the thimble, and it was it was easy to read, it was clear, and so that's why I chose that thread. Another thing we have is a key slot milled in it. This is not for a key, but it's for the pin in the body. There's a flat nosed pin that goes in the body that engages this slot and keeps the spindle from rotating as you rotate the thimble. So it just allows the thimble to slide axially without rotating. That's 126 thousandths wide plus 3 minus nothing. Fairly loose tolerance. We'll mill that in the milling machine. That's about it. It has a little bit of a 45-degree chamfer on the business end of it. But pretty simple project. So let's slide on over to the lathe, and we'll start working on this. So the first operation on this part is turning down the outer diameter. In this case, it's 0.4375 plus nothing minus 1. So I picked up a piece of half-inch cold rolled mild steel bar here out of the scrap bin, so I'm going to use that. So the first thing we need to do is face the end of the bar off. I'm going to be holding one end with a chuck, and I'm going to support the other end with a center, so we can do both our turning and our thread cutting. So first thing we need to do is face the sawed end of the bar stock off. I'm just going to use my turning tool, swing the tool post around enough so I get clearance. I'll use it as a facing tool. I just guessed at the tool height. It's a little bit low, so let's crank it up a little bit so we can get rid of that bit of stock in the center. And we'll just face it off nice to give us a nice surface to center drill on. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is center drill. Since I'm going to be holding one end of the stock like this, I don't like to center drill with the part all the way in the chuck, because if the stock is bent, or if it has some scale on the outside, if I center drill it in here, then I extend it out, the chances of that center drill running true are next to nil. So I like to extend the stock out of the chuck before I center drill. I think I discussed this in my facing video I did. Okay, so the overall length is 3 inches. I'll extend it out 3.5. That'll be enough to do what we need to do. Now we'll go ahead and put a center drill hole in it. Again, with the center drill, you just go in about 2/3 of the way up the tapered portion of the center drill. Now we'll put a center in the tailstock to support it. And put my turning tool in. Have to kind of make sure you got enough clearance around the center and the tailstock. So line my tool up at the end of the stock, and then we'll extend the center as much as it needs to be to reach the part. About there. So to turn this diameter, there's a little routine that I use every time, regardless of what part I'm making. First thing I do is loosen up the dial on my cross slide. Okay, then I'll go down and I'll take a trial cut on the part, mic the part, see where I am as a reference, see how much I have to take off to arrive at the finished diameter, and then I'll set my dial that amount before 0. So when my dial is turned in to 0, the part theoretically should be at the finished diameter. I find that's easier than zeroing up and taking the trial cut and setting my dial on 0, then trying to remember what the heck the number was I had to take off. So it's just a little easier if you preset your dial so when the part's to the finished diameter, the dial's at 0. So let's go ahead and do that. So loosen the dial on my cross slide so it's free. Run the tool in till it scratches a little bit and a little bit more, just to take a little bit. I got this stock is a 1/2 inch diameter. I have that's going down to 7/16, so I have a 1/16 to play with. So plenty of stock. So let's go ahead and take a trial cut, enough that I can measure with a micrometer. Okay. Let's see where we're at. We are at 488 and a half, 0.4885. Punch that in my calculator before I forget. Okay, where do we need to go? How far down? Let's see. Let's take a look at the print. I don't know if you can see that. Where are we? Everything's backwards on this camera. Okay, the diameter is 0.4375 plus nothing minus 1. Alright, I always like to shoot for the middle of the tolerance, so a 1/2 thousandths under this 0.4375, which would make my target diameter 0.437. So we're at 488 and a half now. Let's take 437 from that. Means I have 51 and a half thousandths left. So now I take my dial on the cross slide and I offset it 51 and a half thousandths, in this case, to the right of 0. Right there. I don't think you need to see this. It's pretty basic stuff. Okay, all I'm doing is just lining the dial up with 0, then moving it to the left 51 and a half thousandths. So now, when the dial ends up at 0, the part will be at 437, theoretically. But, you know, it's only theory, so I'm going to, instead of going in the full amount, now I'm going to go in about 10 thousandths before 0, take a cut, and we can check it, verify that it's correct before taking the finished cut. It looks like the battery's about ready to... Alright, so fresh battery, back to it. Let's finish up this trial cut. I can remember where the heck we were. I think we should be 10 over now. Check it again just to be sure. If you're cutting close to the chuck like this, keep an eye on the corner of your compound rest as well as the tool holder. Make sure nothing touches as you get close. Okay, I always like to back my tool out a little bit before I return, just so it doesn't kind of spiral scratch on the surface. Okay, I'm going to move in another 5 thousandths and verify that the dial's set right here. This should be 5 thousandths over our 437 dimension, so should be 442. It's 442 and a half. So take off 5.5 thousandths more, and that should do it. Right there. you don't trust your lathe, this would be a good time to stop and check before you cut the whole thing. But this lathe is pretty repeatable, so I don't need to do that. You have to know your own machine, you know its limitations and its capabilities. And you do that by using it. Making a lot of things on it, doing practice pieces, you know, check it, make sure everything works as you expect it to work. Okay, that completes our outer diameter. Next thing we need to do is let's cut the thread, 7/16 20 thread. So let's go ahead and cut this thread. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on it because I've already done so in some of my other videos. So basically just set your lathe up to cut a 20 pitch thread. Set your quick change gearbox to 20, and see, I guess the next thing we need to do is figure out how far we need to cut this thread up the part. If I look on the print, I see it's 2.5 inches. So let's put a mark on that on the part showing the end of the thread. 2.5 inches from the end, and plus I'm going to add about 3/16 of an inch to that so I can machine the center off when we're done. I don't want a center in the end of my part, so 2.5 plus 3/16 is about 2 11/16. Right about there. Get a little mark showing where the end of the thread is. Okay, there are several different ways to end a thread. Probably the most common way is just to cut a groove at this point, so you can stop your threading tool in the groove. I guess that's the way we'll do this. That's the easiest way. Another way is to retract the tool at the end of the thread in the appropriate spot. That takes squirrel-like reflexes, or you can stop the spindle and finish it to the end by hand by turning the spindle by hand. That works well too. I think we'll do it the easy way, and we'll just cut a groove using the parting tool. So let's go ahead and do that. Right about there. We need to know how deep to cut it, so we're going to need Machinery's Handbook. Just look up the minor diameter of a 7/16 20 thread. Minor diameter is 3/76, so that's about a 1/16 of an inch deep. Let's go ahead and do that. .65 thousandths for good measure. Should be plenty to clear the tool bit. So now we have a little slot we can stop the threading tool in. Now that we have a groove for our thread to end in, let's go ahead and set the threading tool up. This is a tool I pull out of my box. Looks like one that I made for the threading videos or the grinding videos that I made. And I dressed it up a little bit. I ground it down to a sharp point, and then I stoned a flat on the end of it. The flat's 6 thousandths wide. If you remember from the threading video, the flat is 1/8 the pitch of the thread. So that works out to about 6 thousandths. That's what we have here. Just mount it in the tool post. And I like to use a piece of paper underneath and pull the work light down, if I can clear the camera here. Pull the work light down below the workpiece so you can see a silhouette. And it's real easy to line the threading tool up using your thread gauge. So let's go ahead and do that. I guess you can see what's going on. just using one side of the tool bit to line it up with the gauge. If you use both sides, if you jam it in your gauge, then it's going to be hard on your gauge. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. Alright, so that takes care of the alignment. Let's go ahead and set the height. Just use the point of the center. To dial the height in. Okay, now let's go ahead and set the dials on the compound and the cross slide. Let's line the tool up at the end of the part, make sure it clears the tailstock and everything. You have enough room to get off the end of the part. And see, this way, like I say, I'm gonna cut a thread like a thread's meant to be cut on the hard hinge. So I have a tool retractor here, so I'll make sure that's in. If you guys don't have that, you guys will use the compound to retract the tool bit. And then I'll just run it into, just pick 0 someplace on it, doesn't matter where. Turn it in clockwise to take all the backlash out of the screw. Then we'll turn the lathe on and run the tool bit in with the cross slide to set that to 0. Just touch off the part with the tip of the tool. Right there, and set the dial to 0. And now the cross slide will stay at that 0 setting. I also have a carriage stop, so I can automatically stop when the tool gets into that groove. You guys will have to disengage the half nut on your lathe when you reach that point. So make sure the RPM is at a speed you can manage. Let's see where we are here. That's pretty fast. Okay, that's set. Now, okay, let's go ahead and let's take a light cut on it so we can check our pitch. Let's move the compound in 5 thousandths, and we'll take a cut on it. See what it looks like. Okay, when you guys get to where your tool bit's over the groove, you'll just disengage your half nuts, and you should probably retract the tool with your cross slide. Leave the compound set where it is, that way you won't forget where you are in the compound. So retract the tool with the cross slide, disengage your half nuts, run back to the start, run your cross slide back into 0. And then when you're ready to go again, just re-engage the half nut and take your cut. Alright, so let's check this pitch and make sure the pitch is right. It should be 50 thousandths between threads. And it is. 2 threads for every 1/10 of an inch. So that's good. Now let's figure how far we have to move this compound in to get to the depth of the thread. Okay, the formula for that is, for a tool bit with a flat like this, the formula for that is the pitch of the thread divided by 1.5. At least that's my formula. That's what I use. That'll get me, it's not exact, but it's a ballpark figure. It'll get you close. So we got 20 threads per inch. The pitch is 50 thousandths. Divided by 1.5. It's 33 thousandths. So we should crank the compound in 33 thousandths, and then we'll mic the pitch diameter of the thread and see where we are. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put a little, get my print out of the way here, and put a little oil on the thread to make it cut nicer. A little cutting oil. There's 20,000. That was 15. There's 20. Starting to look like a thread. There's 30. Let's take it to 33. Then I'll take a spring cut on it to make sure the tool is not going to take any more off. Just take a couple spring passes, get all the flex out of the system. Alright, let's see where we're at here. We need to look up the pitch diameter. Get our trusty machinery's handbook out again. Look in the thread. If you guys don't have one of these, you need one. So it doesn't matter what edition. This is a 22nd edition. I think I have half a dozen of these laying around the shop, all different editions. So it doesn't really matter. You don't have to go out and spend $80 on a brand new one. You can get one that's 30 or 40 years old, and it'll do everything you need. Plus, it'll have a little character. It's nice working with things like this that aren't brand spanking new. Okay, so we need 7/16 20 thread. This is going to be a class 3A. You have your choice, class 1A through 3A. 3A is the closest tolerance thread. That'd be good for this. We don't want a lot of slop in this thread, since we're going to be using it for measuring. So 7/16 20 3A. The pitch diameter is 4019 to 405. Okay, so 405 should be what we're shooting for here, plus a little bit. We've got to get in between 405 and 402 basically. So this is I'm not going to use thread wires. You know, I showed you how to do it with thread wires, but I don't use them all the time because they're a pain in the butt. I cut a lot of threads, so it's worth my while to go out and buy this thread pitch micrometer. It has various thimbles in it for different pitches of threads. So the one I picked is from 14 to 24 threads per inch. That's in here. Whenever we change thimbles in the mic, we have to zero everything out. So let me check that and make sure it's all zeroed. Just has a little adjustment screw on the frame of the micrometer. So we just dial it in until it reads 0, lock it down, so it's all calibrated. So now we can measure it. We're shooting for 405 diameter. Let's see where we're at here. Okay, we're at 407. So you got to take a couple thousandths off. At this point, I'm not going to use the compound anymore. I'm going to switch over to the cross slide and I'll move that in 2 thousandths and take a cut. That'll cause the tool to cut on both sides, both the left and the right side. So it'll clean up the tool, and it'll copy the shape of your threading tool into the form of the thread and make a real nice clean thread. That's why it doesn't matter where you set the compound. It doesn't have to be set on 29 or 29 and a half or any of that nonsense. Just set it on 30 degrees. When you get close to your final diameter, move the tool straight in. That turns it into a form cutter. It'll copy the shape of the tool bit into the thread, and you'll have a perfect thread cleaned up on both sides. Real nice. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move the cross slide in 2 thousandths and take a cut. Add a little more oil. This should be the finished cut. Do one more pass for good measure. Okay, that's chamfering or chattering a little bit. My center must have loosened up on me, so let's make sure that's nice and tight. Not sure why it's chattering. That's not a good thing. See how it looks here. It doesn't look bad at all. I think we can probably go with that. Run a final check on our diameter. Should be 402 to 405. Okay, we are 405. I'm going to take another thousandth off of that. Since it is chattering, I'm going to slow it down a bit. Take one more thousandth off of it. Okay, that should do it. Let's see where we're at. We are at 404. Okay, so now our thread's done. I like to just take a file and just lightly file the crest of the thread, make sure there's no burrs on it raised up from the thread cutting process. And we'll just hit it with a piece of Scotch-Brite to take any burrs off, make it pretty. That brings up a good point, safety point. This is a Scotch-Brite pad, pretty flimsy stuff. You know it's not going to snag your finger and hurt you, but don't do what I just did with a piece of emery cloth, because what it can do, it can wrap. If you hold it with one hand like this, it can wrap around and it can grab your thumb and pull it in, and it'll take your thumbnail off. Happens a lot. So if you use emery cloth on the lathe, I haven't done any safety videos on that yet. I probably should, especially after this video that's been going around YouTube about the kid getting sucked into a lathe sanding on it. Use emery cloth on a lathe, put it around the tool or the part, and hold each end of the emery cloth in a different hand. Don't wrap it around and grab it like he did. Hold it in each hand. That way if it snags, it'll pull it out of your fingers and you won't pull your hand in. Just a little tip anyway. Alright, now next thing we need to do is cut this off. So we'll get our parting tool out again. Done with the tail stock, we can get that out of here. So let's go ahead and cut it off. It needs to be, need to cut it off a ½ inch past the thread. So I'm going to cut it off about a little more than that, about extra 30 seconds. So we'll have something to face off after I cut it. So 17-30 seconds, right about there. sure this parting tool is square to the work. Get the stop out of the way so I can get close enough to the chuck. There we go. Alright, just squaring it up on the face of the jaw here. We'll go ahead and part this thing off right there. Use a little cutting oil. Of course, it would have helped if I'd set the height of the parting tool before I started. There we go. So next in line we have to face the part to length. These are all 2-place decimals, or plus or minus 15 thousandths. So we have, it's just scale dimensions. This end should be a 1/2 inch past the thread. So let's go ahead and face that off. Again, I'm just going to use my turning tool because I'm too lazy to walk over the toolbox and get a facing tool. They're the same thing except for that side cutting edge angle, so we'll just crank the tool post over a little bit farther than normal. 1/2 inch, so the RPM should be about 800 for steel. Alright, so let's check the length. Got about 25 thousandths to go. Just going to use my carriage stop. Run that up against the carriage and zero it out. So I can tell how much I'm moving in. So there's 25 thousandths. Okay, now we can flip it around. Actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure it. It's supposed to be 3 inches long overall, so I'm going to measure it. See where we're at. We're at 3.195. You have to take 195 thousandths off the end with the center drill hole in it. So let's just go ahead and do that. Just touch off the end with the tool. With that, zero out the carriage stop. Then we'll just move in 195 thousandths. That's about 60. There's 120. There's 185. 190 thousandths. Okay, now this print calls for a 30 thousandths by 45 degree chamfer. In fact, we can go ahead and chamfer both ends. Should be a chamfer on the threaded end as well. So I have a tool I use just for chamfering. It has a 90 degree included angle on it. So we'll get that set up. perpendicular to the work. And while we're chucked up here, we'll just clean up this threaded end like that. Flip it around and put our 30 thousandths chamfer on the other end. Use my carriage stop for that as well. Just run it in until it touches. Zero out the dial and move in another 30. That's 30 thousandths chamfer. So we're done with our lathe work. Looks sort of like the print. Now we'll move over to the milling machine and mill the slot in it for the pin, the key slot. Let's do that next. I'll see you over there.